Thank you so much for joining us this evening. For those of you that are watching the replay, if you did register and was unable to join us, we will be answering your questions. And I'm sure if you were not able to submit your questions in advance, we're probably going to go ahead and take care of them tonight. So, the title of this webinar is I Have My Nonprofit, Have My 501c3. Now what? With a concentration for grant funding. Now, before I introduce myself, I am going to introduce the main reason we are all here. I want to have her introduce herself, actually, and that's Elder Dolores Petaway, who is the executive director of a 31-year-old nonprofit Crusading Outreach Ministry and the perfect person to be your nonprofit consultant. So, Elder Dolores Petaway, please take it away.
Okay, good evening. I'm so glad you're here this afternoon. One of the things I want to say to you, again, I am the founder of DDP Services, and I have over 3 decades of experience as a founder and director of Crusade and Outreach Ministry. I love to share my stories with you. I love to help you build your 501c3 or your nonprofit organization so that you can be empowered to do the things you would love to do in the community. So this evening, we are honored to have with us our grant writer, Alicia Brown. She's been with me for years now, and she's on my board of directors. And she has been a blessing to the community. In fact, we have a member here today to witness how she was able to write her grant, and she's been greatly improving the community for the fact that Alicia Brown was able to do this for her. I was able to write Sadia's 501c3, put her in the spot that she needed to be in to be able to receive her grant funding. But there's so many questions that we need to answer, and Alicia would take it from this point.
All right. So thank you, Elder. And you touched on some key things that I want to just get right into, especially respecting everyone's time, because one of the things that we learn. Oh, I'm so rude. I didn't introduce myself. Yes. Alicia Brown, definitely introduced really to nonprofits and getting my start as far as being a grant writer and really learning hands on what nonprofits are, the limitations, the benefits, all of those things behind the myths was being a member of Crusading Outreach Ministry, sitting alongside Dolores Petaway. And just grateful now, realize it's been 7 years. I'm now on the board of three nonprofits, but the one, like I said, is where I really get and got the nuts and bolts of what nonprofits are, what are the limitations, being a grant writer, what's involved in that, all the logistics, the foundation, and all of that comes directly from this nonprofit consultant, Elder Dolores Petaway, and you can't beat over 31 years of experience. You just can't. That's just one of the best learning grounds. And I love the different things that we're able to do with the community. And grant funding is a large part of that. But one of the things I want her to be able to truly zone in on is no nonprofit can exist, can thrive, and can be sustainable solely depending on grant funding. That's a slippery slope. As beautiful as it is, if you think about it, oh, it's other people's money and it sounds great. The bigger the grant you can get, the better it is. And we're going to, delve into some of those myths because people get it wrong all the time. So, for those that are viewing this and had the chance to go ahead and complete the actual um, survey and submit their questions, one of the things I see so much is people believe that they can go ahead, they can get a grant, and that's what's going to help them start their nonprofit, or that's what's going to help them get all the things their nonprofit needs so they can do this great work in the community. Elder, is that true or is that not true at all?
That's true that people think like that, but it's definitely not the way that you should start And when you are thinking about doing a nonprofit, you really, really need to understand what you're doing, your vision, your mission, and not depend totally on grants because that is definitely a myth. And if you don't have your 501c3 structured correctly, then you are not able to even get a grant, less on getting donations.
Mm. So we're going to reiterate that one time before I pass it back over to you to delve in that further. Getting a grant is not the key of what you need in order for you to be able to start your nonprofit. You actually need to do things to get your 501c3 status first. And that's not it. There's some other things you need to do as well to make sure you have a firm foundation for you to be eligible to have grant funding. Can you elaborate on that more, Mrs. Pettaway?
Yes, because one of the things when you were trying to get your nonprofit, you need to know why you're doing your nonprofit. Why do you want a nonprofit? You're going to have that inner love for your community. You're going to have to know why you chose to have a nonprofit. Is it about you trying to make money? Or is it about you trying to help other people? Nonprofit, you're going to have to come in with love for the community. You're going to have to come in and recognize that when there is nobody else, I'm still here to be able to run this nonprofit. If you have no love for your community and the lack of certain things, because everybody nonprofit has a topic for it. And if you don't understand what it is, then you will not be able to last.
So, one of the things I say with different clients, the goal is going to be sustainability. Um,
Sustainability.
just like anything else, it's just like, and this is one of the few things, it's like business. When we're talking about nonprofits, those are two separate entities. But just like a business owner, you have a vision. You should have a vision. You have things you want to accomplish. You have a mission, but that alone is not going to make you sustainable. That alone, a great idea can be great. I see it with the grant writing, but that doesn't mean that's going to make a grant. There's several criteria that goes into what grant funders are actually looking for. So, yeah, it would be great if we all could get a grant and use
Mhm.
that grant to build the business we want. In this case, we want to build this nonprofit that most people that talk about their nonprofit say we do these great things for the community. We could do so much more with more funding. We could help more people. And that sounds great. But that alone is not what a grant funder is looking for. So again, it goes to the foundation of your nonprofit. And we're going to come back to that. But one of the other questions I have for you, Elder, that I know a lot of the people when I see them and they want us to write a grant, don't realize there's 27 different categories of nonprofits.
It's 27 and they consider 29 totally.
Okay.
That it's different types of nonprofits, and a lot of them have the C behind it. It's like maybe 501c5, 501c6, and it depends on what your mission is. So you're going to have to identify within yourself what you want to do. Social clubs, all of them have the 501c3. I mean, have the 501c, but it's the number behind it and it's how you write it. The language has so much. As I shared with Sadia when I was helping her with her, I continued. She understood it when I explained to her. She was a business person. You cannot use the language that you use in your business for the IRS. They don't want to hear that. So if you say a nonprofit, they're looking at just what it says, nonprofit. You're not looking for a profit. You're looking to help out the community. Your mission has to be correct. Your vision has to be correct. Your programs need to follow what you say you are doing for the community. And when you're doing grant writing, you have to know that a grant is only for a short period of time. So if you're doing nonprofit, you're actually saying, I'm going to be here for a long time. I started out nonprofit, and mine was to feed the people. So I had to realize that this is what I chose to do. So I'm in my cabinets. I'm doing what I had to do to keep it sustainable. As you say, when you start a business, your goal is to make it work. And you have to do whatever you need to do to make it work and not depend on someone else. So you have to have that look of understanding what you're going to need for yours and not depend on grants.
Mm. So I know for some that may be newer or you're ahead of this process by trying to learn what you can learn before you start your nonprofit, it sometimes sounds like it's conflicting information. And one of the things I want to do is we delve into that. I'm looking at the list of questions that not only do I get frequently from writing grants, but also that people submit it. Um, you touched that you want to be sustainable. You talked about when grant funders are granting you funds, they're looking at the fact, are you sustainable? So they're not just looking at it's make or break based on whether we give you this money. If they can look at it, and I can attest to that as well. If they can look and say, oh, you need 50,000 from us. Mm, we don't see where you've ever managed 50,000. You have, okay, this idea, but you can't back up how it's going to be effective. And you can't show me past this point, if we did give you money, that you can keep it going. They're not going to grant the funds. It may be a
Exactly.
phenomenal idea, but more than likely, they're not going to grant it because you have not demonstrated sustainability. You have nothing, especially sometimes when people are newer, you can't show me evidence that you have any collaboration. You've done this work before. Um, and I know one thing that I'll just go ahead throw in there that, and it's aligns to one of the questions that a lot of people don't realize with grants. Right now, they're looking for scientific based evidence. And actually, they have for several years, maybe even a decade or more. So it's not just me having a great idea. Yes, you can think outside the box and all of that, but you need proof that this has been done before, either by you or statistically in your research, you show where the program you have has been done before, or these methods that you're using are highly effective, and you can demonstrate that. It's more than just a great idea that they want to fund for. Even if we were talking about for-profit grants, it's the same thing. They want more than just a great idea. They want something they know is proven, and you as the organization can demonstrate that you have the expertise, the experience to pull this off, and pull it off beyond just the amount that we would give you in the form of a grant.
Yes, because one of the things when they get ready to give you a grant, they want to know after the grant ends, because all grants have a period, it's going to end. They want to know what you're going to do after then. Do you fold up and stop? And so they don't want to put their money out there and they realize that you're not going to be sustainable. And a lot of times people get grants because of who they know, who they're connected with, if they're connected with other grants, if they and that other organizations, and if that other organization has been durable for years, then they were like, oh, so you know so and so, oh, you connected to this group. Then they realize that you have some resources, you have someone that's going to help you in the community. They look at all of that before they grant you the money to run because they don't want to put out $50,000, $92,000, sometimes not even $2,000, $500 if they think that you're gonna after you spend the $500, what are you gonna do? A lot of times on the grants, they ask you a lot of questions and they want those questions answered to see if your organization is worth them even thinking about putting the money out to your organization. So you have to think about all of that. Even when you're putting your nonprofit together, you need to sit down. A lot of times I tell people it's worth you going to someone that understand what you need so that they can put that in your grant so that when you get ready to, I mean, put that in your writings for the IRS. So when you get ready to go, it's already there.
Mhm. And that's something else I want to have you discuss. Because one of the things is, and I'll go back to the business world for just a moment and say that, a lot of times, just like in business, you can bootstrap.
Mhm.
In lean times, I'm gonna do what I need to do to start this and build. So you may come out your pocket. But at the same time, a nonprofit entity is very different. So things that you could do business wise and get away with till we get to this level, you can't do that with the nonprofit. So, what I'm going to say is just like with business, you do research, and there are some things that, you really should hire someone, but I'm going to try to do ABC by myself. And then when we get to a certain level, I'll hire someone for that or get someone. I got to make the money first before I, really start putting all this out. What I have found, especially working with you and then going out and working with other nonprofits, that is not the case with your nonprofit, especially if it's true to me for all the categories. For those of you that may be joining now, she just mentioned that there are actually, I said 27, there's actually 29 in total different types of nonprofits. So if you're viewing and you didn't know that, this is one of the biggest signs of why you need to work with a vetted, qualified nonprofit consultant. Notice I said vetted and qualified because people can call themselves anything and they can charge you ridiculous fees, but they may not have the expertise to do what they say they're doing. Um, and I'm not going to ask you to give it all away because this is what you do for a living. But
Mhm.
I'm just going to say if you could just give them a general understanding of the importance, like when we talked about foundation, why they need to be with a nonprofit consultant. Because I know I asked you a question, but I'm going to give an example. I have so many people that just like a business, okay, for most cities, for most states, depending on what you're doing, you just go to your commissioner of revenue or someplace call it tax revenue office. You get a business license. Could be $30, could be $50, depending on what you're doing. You're in business now. You could do that. You could do Avon, you can, MLM, you can do a lot of different things. And if I pay for this little business license, I'm legal in my city. And then you go a step further. I know in Virginia, we have what's called the State Corporation Commission. So you register
Yes.
there as well. Okay, I may pay $50 there. For under $100 or maybe $100, officially, I'm a business owner. That's not the case with a nonprofit. So
Not at
some
all.
people are doing different things. Well, I can get an LLC. It's just me and I start my business. I don't have other officers yet. Okay, someone told me I can do the same with my nonprofit. I can go get my LLC and it just be you, and you can use that to start your nonprofit. And later on, you can get incorporated. Later on, you can get certain officers. So it's a lot of myths, and people are really muddying the waters by thinking I can use the stuff to real quickly. Maybe I did to get in business and worry about all that other stuff later. I can slide that on over here with a nonprofit and do the same thing on the cheap. And I'll worry about all that other stuff later. I want you to tell them from your expertise as a nonprofit consultant what they really need to do to get started. Why it's so important to work with someone like you to get that foundation so you can get that
Yes.
funding and do the things you want to do.
One of the things that when you said that is so interesting to me, when I first started my nonprofit in 1992, I went online, I did the EIN just like I did with my business. My husband and I had a business, and I did all the things. That worked then. The
Mm-hmm.
EIN number now, the way that you would do it, don't even work the same anymore. You do the EIN middle way of it, and you have to have things just right. You can't say what you normally would say. The IRS would definitely reject it. I had a client, her name was different. I had a client from North Carolina, and she gave me her various names, and I knew it was legit because of her business. And every time I would put her EIN number, her name in, the IRS would reject it. And we went on, she gave me about 5 or 6 different ways she used her name. So finally one day she said she was cleaning out her file cabinet and came across her paperwork and realized that this was the name that she had given the IRS. Once she gave me that name, which was legit, you know how you can change your name? My name is Dolores Worsley. I might want to say it differently, but it's
Oh,
still the same person. And until I put her name down exactly the way she had started her business before, soon as I did that, it popped right up. The IRS accepted it. So when people start their business, everybody's hollering LLS. I have my LLS. One of the things that I appreciate about Glory, she's a client of mine. Saudi is a client of mine. So when I shared with them what I knew, they listened to me and allowed me to show them the way to go to get their um, 501c3 to get their nonprofit, period. You have to put the two businesses aside because they're two different businesses. Yes, a lot of people talking about I have an LLC and I can do this and I can do that. You're going to be surprised of how many people say this, and the IRS is looking into your business. They're spying on you because LLC says I want profit. Nonprofit says, I have a heart for my community. And it's the name that you use, it's the language that you put on paperwork that the IRS is looking for. So if you don't have the right language, that in itself they might let you slide by, and they are looking at you at all times. And I've learned that I thought I had it made. I had to go back and redo it. And that's how we became Crusade and Outreach Ministry. So when I went back, that's when I learned that the rules had changed. The way I did my EIN in the beginning, it changed. And every so often, the rules of IRS change. I could go right now and go online, and the rules might have changed because every 2 to 3 years, they change the language, and you need to be able to keep up with the language. And my goal is integrity. So when I have a client, my goal is to give you my best. I'm a minister, so I pray over every. I listen to you. You tell me what you desire, and then I put it in the right form. And the goal is to put it right so that if a grant opportunity come, the IRS would say, is it in your 501c3? Is it on paper? And then my words, I always say, pull a leg from it, but it's actually extending a word from a word. And long as it means that particular thing, then you can apply for the grant. Because the grant writer want to know too, where is it at? Someone want your paperwork. Is it in your bylaws? And if your bylaws don't back up what you are talking about, I make sure I put all of this in your bylaws. Every client has that in their bylaws that I deal with. So if there's a question, they can say, oh, yes, it's written in my bylaws. And they might ask you, where is it? Then you have the paperwork, and they will say, well, that's not what you said. They'll say, well, you can look it up and it means this or that. So that's what I call extensions of a word, or pulling legs from a particular organization, a particular word. So that is vital. And so LLS means that to me, you're always asking the IRS to be in your business. When you first start, they're in your business. They're going to watch you. They're going to see if it's actually for the charitable, because that's a word that you're going to need to use. So if it's not charitable, then they're watching you. They want to know if you're talking about scientific or literacy, they're watching you to see what you are doing.
yeah. And I'm so glad you said that because after working with you so long and then going over to the grant writing side and working with different organizations, one of the things I always appreciated and came back to what you said is it's important. Someone like you who sits down with people, I've seen you do it over and over, whether it's in our state or whether it's clients out of state, sitting down first and just hearing their vision.
Mhm,
Because from the person that's the visionary, you don't know what you don't know. And
mhm,
you may have a vision where you put it right here. And then someone like you, they sit and talk to, and you'll be asking questions like, now, wait a minute. I know today or the next 5 years, this is your plan, but what about this? Are you
Exactly.
thinking about this? Do you ever think you want to move to this? So you can tailor it where I had this vision for 5 years and I thought that was a big vision, but ooh, now after 2, 3 years, maybe we're ahead or maybe we're there. I never thought about this. And now I might have to start a whole brand new profit because I only thought here. If they sit down with someone like you can have those probing questions going with your expertise, hearing what you hear, but knowing how to expand that. So they have room to grow beyond what vision they even came to you with. So then they're not looking down the years of going, ooh, we didn't think about that.
Exactly.
Oh, now we got to start all over. Because as I learned from you, that good standing, if you're fortunate enough to be sustainable and the IRS puts that stamp after several years that you have good standing, you don't want to lose those years in that branding starting
Exactly.
a brand new nonprofit.
Exactly. Like I tell you, when I first started, my thing was to feed the community. That's a passion of mine. Still is. That's what I do. But it was so many other things that I learned from. I did street ministry for 22 years. So when I was out there as crusading food ministry, I'm giving out food and I'm listening to all these other things that was needed. And I'm like, okay, I had to come back and redo everything so that that's why we are called Crusade and Outreach Ministry, because I understood that I had to reach out into the community and try to meet their needs. So fortunately, at that time, I didn't have my 501c3. I didn't even know what a 501c3 was at that time. When I became incorporated, I was so excited. I had the corporation papers and I thought everything was supposed to just happen, but it don't work like that. And I had to learn that. And I was blessed to have a person to sit down with me and show me what I needed, and she saw. I explained to her what I wanted and what I saw in the street, and she was able to sit down with me and take what I said and make it balloon. She just blew it up. And so that's what I do. I learned that. So many things that I'm doing now was not what I started out, crusading food ministry. I am so excited that I didn't stop. Even with Sadia, when Sadia was talking to me, I was like, dear heart, it's so much in your heart. You want to do this, you want to do that. You need your own. She's on my board. I said, you don't need to be up under me. I still want her there. She still participates. She's there with us. If I need her, she'll try to be there if she's not busy. But I shared with her, I said, you do not need to be on my, you need your own, because what she was doing is so much different than what we were doing. And I didn't want to hold her back. I shared that with her. Same thing with Gloria. When I talk with Gloria, I'm like, you have these wonderful ideas. You don't need to sit on somebody else's board without having your own board, without having your own organization. So that's what I like to do as a consultant, is to share with you and not just look at it for myself. I can say, I want your 2,000, I want your $3,000, put it in my pocket and don't care
Hmm.
what happens to you. That's not my goal. Dedicated, dependable, professional. That's what it stands for. And behind it, Dolores David Petaway Services. To me, my name is integrity. I want you to walk away and say that she gave me her best. You can sit down and talk to me, and I will share with you from that point what is best for you, not what someone else have, not how I run mine. And I tell people a lot of times, they say, "Oh, you still small." Yes, I am small. That's what I did, with small to mid-size nonprofits, because I'm not trying to be the United Way. I'm not trying to be the food bank. I'm not trying to be what somebody else. I want you to do what you're supposed to do. Whatever your vision is, that's for you, and then I'll show you what you need to do to make it work for you.
I can attest. Again,
Yeah.
going back to structure, bylaws, and foundation, that Crusading outreaches, for y'all that may be joining us now, the nonprofit is 31 years old. That elder is the founder, executive director for, and I will mention she is the sole founder. Sometimes you have a 31-year nonprofit, but it's changed hands as far as who was the original founder and now who's the executive director. Nope. Same person that had the vision to create it is still the same person that is the executive director. But that foundation was so well built that I don't, of course, there's some things we cannot do, but my God, you're looking at someone. I said at the beginning, I've been with Crusading now for 7 years. There's tons of things I would like to do. Because of that foundation, I can do it. Those bylaws are just ironclad and expansive with the vision. So going from a feeding ministry to how you have the foundation laid, there's so much that crusade and outreach can do and does do, that you may not associate with some of the things you see. So in the interest of time, I want to hit some of the last questions because you hit on something that was a question we had submitted. When you talk about collaborations, because a lot of times people are looking at, oh, if I can get with that one, they're older, they got a good name in the community, they've worked with this grant office and this grant office, I'm going to get them on my board, or we're going to bring our two nonprofits, our three nonprofits together, and I know with them, I can get this money. But you just said something. Because one thing about it, you with your ethics and the way you do business, you were mentioning a few clients that you said, including one that's on our board, you know what? I see your vision. You really need to get your own. Whereas the way I've seen it done other times, they're like, okay, newbie, got it. Yeah, let me bring them in. I like they're younger or they got this idea that could make money. Let me bring them in. Let me put them under our wing. We can get the grant because we got the good standing and the bylaws that allows us to do it. Yeah, let them come in. We'll take this much and they'll be happy just to get this. And then we can have the program under that. So what I want, because some of the people that did the survey and submitted questions, they're ready to collaborate. But what
Mhm.
do they need to know as far as nonprofits, especially you're trying to have the right foundation and sustainability when it comes to collaborating with other nonprofits?
One of the things you definitely need to do your homework
Okay.
before you attach yourself with a nonprofit. You need to know what their goals are. You need to check on them in their community. Like what she said, I'm looking at Sadia. When Sadia was talking, I'm sorry if I'm steady talking about you, Sadia, but excuse me. One of the things I could have easily said, this is a younger person, bright ideas. She can take our nonprofit from 1 to 50, and I can glean behind all of this. But when I looked at her and listened to her, I'm like, no, she needs her own. I don't. I could have, and this is me as a integrity. I could have easily say, okay, come on in. I need this. I'm gonna set you over here. You do this, you do that. But, and I'm gonna say it as a woman of God and integrity, I understood she needed her own. Had I not understood this earlier, I might would have said, come on in. But gradually, I probably would have later told her, you need to work your own because we are so different. And it's okay to be different. That's what this world is about. Everybody's different. She saw things that the young people needed that I did not offer them. I have youth programs, but I didn't offer them that, and I didn't need to hold her back. I wanted her to excel. So that's what's when I'm talking, when you're talking to me, I'm looking at it and I do say, oh, I could, that sounds good on mine. And I do say that. That sounds good. That would make me look good. But is that fair to the person? Now, if I say this or that, it's her choice. It's her choice to say, no, no, I want to do this on yours. You have done so many things you're in a position to do so many things, Alicia, because I listened to what you said. And then I said, well, you know what? You need to be able to do this. You need your freedom here. You need your freedom there. I don't want you tied under me. So you have to be careful when you go out. We need the money, we need the resources, definitely. And there's nothing more wrong with working with other people. I'm connected with a lot of people, but on the same token, I've come from a lot of people because I look at it, I'm like, okay, it's time to back up. I've gotten what I need. You going left, you going this way. That's not who I am. I need to back up and come up, and people be looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, that's okay. I have a very few that I'm going to stay connected with, and I've shared with y'all. They're like the food bank or whatever. I say we do not need to disconnect. You need to know who you're connected with. Don't run because it looks good from the outside. What's actually going on the inside? And then connect yourself. Be careful who you connect yourself with.
Wise advice. And I will say this is, I always say few ways that nonprofits mimic business and the same applies. Because there's been a lot of businesses who got the wrong partner, or we gonna connect and take over this one, and we gonna get together and do, and one of them winds up losing their business, losing their integrity, losing their good standing. There's a lot, as much as there is to gain, there's a lot to be lose.
Very much to lose.
And I always look at, sometimes the stories people say sound really good, and they may have a great vision, but they're too eager. You're
Mhm,
operating from desperation.
mhm.
They want the money too much. You can tell with certain people sometimes you're in this more for the money than what you're saying the mission is. And if greed and other things drives them, you can just see the slippery slope that's about to happen. And you as a nonprofit person, this is for more of the ones that will be viewing this that are seasoned and you're already well established, and you might be looking at who's the next partner to collaborate with. Um, you have to realize what you hold. It's not always about the size, because good standing is good standing. And I'll say, from the grant writing perspective, there are some grants where they don't care if you're new. But when we talk about most of them, they want to see good standing. They want to see on average 3 years of your operating in nonprofit world, and what the financial statements look like and what the results are and what have you done. Not the great vision you say, but what have you done?
What have you
And if
done?
they can't see that, it's a problem. There's a reason for that, because there's a lot of people that come in with a great idea, but a funder can look, it's not sustainable. And
And
you can share of things you've seen. Of course, you're not going to name the companies, but where they had those great grants, 6, 7 figures, and had all the offices, all the vehicles, all the whatever, that their name was infamous, and we don't know them today. They're gone.
well, one of the things that we were connected with a group, and they wouldn't listen, and they didn't obey all the rules, so they were denied their status with the IRS. And they came back, they asked me questions. I think we had been in the ministry then about 10 or 15 years. They wanted us on that board because we had experience. But then when I shared some things, because they knew business and I was trying to share with them what I knew, they chose not to listen to me and pastor, because they thought they were smarter, and so they lost theirs. They had to go a certain period of time before they could get it back. And then once they got it back, they were doing some of the same things. I spoke up, and again, they didn't listen. And so they lost the ability to have that 501(c)(3). That was very interesting for me to look at, to see what happened to you. I mean, this was real. And so I don't call no names. I could call names, but I don't. and we watched this person lose, as smart as they were, and the people that they were connected to, all the resources, grant opportunities, but because it was not set up correct and they didn't do it correctly, it was taken from them. So it is vital to make sure that you stay within the guidelines that because when I do your 501c3, I'm going to come back and talk to you about it, let you know what I'm sending to the last thing I do before I get your permission to send off the paperwork. I have a meeting. I used to meet personally with you, but when the pandemic came, we did Zoom, and I would go over the paperwork with you to let you know what I'm sending to the IRS so that you will have an idea what they're looking for you. And then I always advise you, make sure you stay in contact with the IRS. They want to know. I don't care what you think. You might can call, and I always say this, and ask one question. It might sound silly to you, but the IRS, what do? They keep up with everything. They know you keep up with them. And so I made a reference to the fact that I called them when about 3 years ago, and I asked a question. And the reason I knew that they listened to me, I have an organization extended from this, and it's in New York. They made sure in about 3 weeks, I had paperwork to confirm our conversation to let me know everything was updated. They could not have done that without it being recorded. If I had just talked to this person and then they hung up and dismissed me, they would not have sent me this paperwork. So that let me know, and I pass it on to everybody at least once a year, no more than twice a year. Stay contact with them, let them know that I'm still here. This is what I'm getting ready to do. And they might just say, well, what is in your bylaws? What is in your mission statement? And you'll say that no, they'll say, is it in your mission statement? Is it in your bylaws? And you'll say yes. And that's all they want to hear. So you can't tell me it don't work because again, they would not have sent me the paperwork to reinforce that we were still in good standing in New York and here. So they do keep up with you. So it's good to keep in contact. One of the things I want to say to you again, too, when you are business and you are nonprofit, two different languages. That is vital to know. And so a lot of times people try to do their own 501c3 or somebody else might do it and they know it's not going to pass because the language is vital to you and you need to keep up. You have to keep up with it every year so that you can put the correct words in the correct place. And my goal is to try to not schedule you for what you said today. I'm looking at what you can do way ahead. When I step down or step aside, this organization is supposed to continue to go. It do not stop when I stop. If I shut my eyes today or tomorrow, it's still supposed to go. If I step aside, it's still supposed to go. So you're supposed to have your organization set up and have the right people on your board. Don't just put anybody on your board. Make sure you have support on your board because people will allow you to put them on their board with the goal of getting rid of you. And the way it's set up, you got to go. If they vote you out, you got to go. And you are the founder, you still have to go. And don't trust everybody. They can be your friends, grin, they looking at you and they smiling. We have had that to happen to us. Pastor and I have had them to sign the paperwork to say this or that. And when they knew we were out of town, when we were doing the street ministry, they had set it up with the news people to come out when they knew we were gone. We were in New York. We could not get back here in time. We got phone calls. People were telling, but when the news came up, it came, and I had to take that person off of my board because I knew then I could not trust this particular person. They still grinning in my face today. I smile, don't call names, at least you know whose it is, because I share with her because she's my COO. Be careful who you put on your board. Be careful because they might can offer you this. These people came on and said, I could do this and do that. Oh, yes, they did it for a period of time, but they came because we were already established. They're watching you. They're watching you, Sadia. They're watching you, Gloria. They're watching y'all because they're looking at what you're doing. And when the opportunity comes and they grinning in your face, that's not necessarily what they want to do. They want to move you out, and they can do it because it's in your bylaws. They can vote you out. You do not own this. You do not own your nonprofit. And it's up to you how you sustain it and protect yourself. So always keep that in mind when you're setting up your nonprofit.
That's a beautiful segue as we wrap up. Because for those that are live as well as those who will be watching the replay of this rebroadcast, especially newer people, that might be a shocker. People think about business. Well, it's my business. I'm the CEO. It's my vision. What you mean they're gonna vote me out? And I know once the profits are banging, you ain't gonna. It has happened. It's happened whether they were family. Some people think the way you protect it, I got my family on board. Many a nonprofits, as well as businesses, have been ruined by family. I have my friend, many a nonprofits who you thought was your friend for you started and how it ended, been ruined. You all know them. They're a great person in the community. They're a political figure. They're what it's all kinds of people that live in the world. Different people have different agendas and motives. And sometimes we good when we start talking and get together, but as time goes by, you really get to see people. Um, and like you said, nonprofits, unlike business, yeah, they can vote you off. Although you're the founder, you might have been the original visionary creator and got the system, and this wouldn't have happened without me. Got the funding, brought on da da da. That's great, but because it's a nonprofit, they can vote you off, keep your money, keep moving on going, and you're looking at what you created that you're no longer running. So,
Exactly.
with that being said, and the wealth of information you have shared tonight, we do thank you. And I want to leave this last minute. One of the best things I love is your Zoom cover because the website's there. So you could say how they could contact you, but they could look dead at the screen, screenshot it, write it down, do what you got to do because that's where to go. If you want to find out on that website, it has been updated. You see her team. So you will see myself there as a grant writer. You will also see Letitia Bates, who does amazing nonprofit services, including writing your curriculum. She can develop those for you for the programs you want grant funding for and help you expand that way too. DDP Services has really come together with different partners and team members who are able to help you from that beginning stages on forward. But I want to leave these last moments for Dolores Petaway for you to tell us how people can connect with you, exactly who you are looking for as far as your ideal client for nonprofit consulting, and then what services that you offer.
Okay, one of the things again I want to say too, my program developer is David Petaway. We work together on that. It's important to me to sit down with your ideas and not just use them for my ideas or how I think. So I share the ideas. He's been blessed to help me to develop your programs and put it out there to the IRS. So we work well together with that. So he's the program developer for us. You can reach me on my website, ddpservices.org, or you can call me at 757-408-0662. And if you call me, then I will share to a point what I would like for you to do. And then I will ask you to come in as, I will come to you as a consultant so that I can see. I like to hear your ideas and I can tell you what to do. I love the fact that we talked about grants tonight. I just want to say this too. We talked about grants, but when you get your nonprofit, don't depend on grants. Grants are great. They help so much. Depend on it, but not let it be your only leg. Look for individuals. Look for people that will consistently pour into you. You're gonna need something because when the money run out from the grant, then what? That has happened to us before, and we had to again reach back in our pockets. I used to work for the ministry. My tithes, my offerings, all of that went into the to sustain. So you need to look at that when you start your nonprofit. And then whoever you get, and I preferably be DDP services, then I will share with you what is the best way to go to the IRS. It's two different ways, 1023 easy or 1024. And I will share with you according to what you tell me the best route to go. And so far, though, the clients that I have been blessed. I have one that changed her mind at the last minute. And when she did, the opportunity came for her to get a $65,000 grant. She couldn't get it because she started out, she paid for the 1024, but at the last minute, she changed her mind and wanted the easy way out. That's what she wanted. And then when the opportunity came for her to get the $65,000 grant, she couldn't get it because there is a rule there. But if you listen to me and we talking together, then I will advise you in the right way to go according to what you share with me. So tonight, I thank you for coming and I appreciate and I pray that I've said things that will help and empower you as you go forward.
Thank you so much, Elder. Again, ddpservices.org is where you would go. There is the phone number, there are the services, there's the form where you can contact with her. And again, thank you for sharing these nuggets. Because
Yes.
funding is very important for a nonprofit organization as it is for a business. But if that foundation is not right, you're messing with funding and you don't want to do that because we believe your missions are very important and the people waiting for you to serve them are very important. So you want to start off with a firm foundation, you want to start off legal and in compliance, and you want to be able to build something that is sustainable that will even outlive you and continue to be very a beacon to the community. So
Yes.
thank you everyone that has taken time to join us. That
Yes.
is the session. Elder, I hope you can see on this live the comments there
Yes.
where people are thanking you for being informative in your information. And
Yes.
when this does, if you're watching the replay, I know you've heard her talking to people. She is not crazy. That you cannot see them in the recording, but they are here. So that's why she's referring to different names that you don't see their faces. Um, because they're here, but they're not part of the recording for you to see. So again, thank you, Elder Dolores Paraway, nonprofit consultant for DDP Services. Thank you all for this joining us, and thank you for those of you that are watching this rebroadcast. And remember, for all your nonprofit consulting needs, including grant funding, program development, curriculum development, go visit DDP Services. And Elder, I'll leave it to you to say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye and thank you for your attention tonight and God bless your nonprofits.